All right, so ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, friends, Romans, countrymen, all that jazz, we're talking about the Great Awakening, and we want to look at changes in colonial America. So you guys are going to be on the hook at the end for 4 topics. The first one is the Great Awakening, and that's kind of our like threshold moment where things are going to start changing in the colonies. We're going to build up to that point, and we're going to see a couple, 3 other issues on the way. So the first issue that comes last in your textbook on page 58, I believe, is going to be the Great Awakening. Yeah, it starts on page 58. So that's the last one, page 58, Great Awakening in your textbook. That is going to be a positive for colonists. The other one that's going to be a positive for colonists is going to be on page 56 in your whole book, and that is going to be the Zenger case, John Paul Zenger case. So those 2 are positives for colonists. The other 2 issues that you're going to be looking out for, and you have to decide whether you want to do them for your topic, are negatives for colonists. They're cons. And those 2 issues are the Dominion of New England, which is on page 55. And then the other one is the Navigation Acts, which should be on page 50. It's kind of mostly on 57, kind of split between 56, 57. So anyways, what we're going to do is, I swear this is deja vu for you guys, but I'm going to tell you guys about the Great Awakening in kind of like a Quentin Tarantino movie. I'm going to start right before the final end, going to bring up like the big climax here, but then I'm going to walk you back and all the way through to get there. So the Great Awakening, you guys should remember from last class, is a religious movement, but the big deal is it's going to have a social and political impact. So we want to know that. So how is a religious movement where everyone's going to start like getting interested in church and religion and sin and heaven and all that jazz, how's that going to translate to politics? That's what we want to know. I'm not too worried about these 3 individuals over here, these handsome fellas. I don't really care about them. They're preachers. They're going to be like doing the groundwork of spreading messages and having big revival meetings. But I want to focus on the impact today. So before we get there, we want to go over that government stuff that you guys did last class. So again, this is review. So if you're watching this and you already know this really well, you can fast forward. If you think it's worthwhile, you might want to watch a couple of minutes because I'm going to show you a couple of things that come up. We've talked about monarchy. Monarchy is a form of government where a monarch is in charge. That would be a terrible definition because you still haven't explained anything. And what we want to say is monarchy is a form of government run by a king or queen in which they basically have absolute power over laws, taxes, regulations, all that jazz. So the next evolution, because what we want to look at is where we're getting with our colonies. And because we eventually know the colonies are going to have a revolution. Well, we're right here. Like what we're doing is taking a look at the year 1700. So we've got about 75 years of developing the colonies. And remember, England's still going on. There's everything going on in the world. And then the other thing is we're still about 75 years out from the revolution. Now, that's not the perfect date because the Great Awakening is going to happen a little after. I just want to use that date arbitrarily. Good call. So the first thing that's going to develop is there's going to be an absolute versus limited monarch. Absolute is what we started. Remember, that's in 7th grade stuff, all the divine right of kings. They can do whatever they want because God specially blessed them. Woo, mumbo jumbo. That's baloney. So the first thing that's going to happen is there's going to be limited monarchs. That means they're going to sign a piece of paper like a contract. And that means they have to give up some of their power to the people because they can't just say whatever they want and do whatever they want. There's going to be laws on paper that say just because that kid isn't paying attention, you cannot throw that kid in jail. Yeah, I'm looking at you. Anywho, that's a wonderful thing. The next evolution that's going to come from that same Magna Carta in 1215. Remember King John, 1215, Runnymede outside of London. The nobles surrounded him and said, hey, sign this paper or else. Well, they're going to say, hey, we want a parliament where we're going to have like an elected council. And it's going to start with only like the rich nobles, and it's going to expand over time. The idea is parliament is going to be a group that are going to help make decisions. This should also look familiar. I think I said this last class. This is something, now I'm also bringing this up because you guys are supposed to work on a propaganda poster later. This right here is a terrible image for Parliament. This has nothing to do with Parliament. It's just a building in which the English Parliament meets, but it doesn't tell us anything about what Parliament is or how it works or anything like that. I like this picture better, and this is going to help me get better ideas because I'm not just Google image searching Parliament. I had an idea about Parliament. And then these 2 are even better, these 2 lower pictures, because again, it's not just Google search image Parliament, it's something about it. And so what I figured out is for this one, I searched up legislature because that was in my definition. And I know the legislature is a group that gets together to make laws. And the whole idea about that is if a group of people are making laws, those laws should be more fair than just one guy deciding. because we all admit, your history teacher, if your history teacher could make rules, oh, you guys would not be happy. So anyways, the big meaning of this is, who would you want making laws that would affect your daily life? Do you want a king that's 3,000 miles away? Or do you want a parliament that's 3,000 miles away? Well, at least a parliament is going to have more people, more voices, and hopefully people that are kind of like you, and they might represent your ideas and your thoughts. So the next iteration, like again, I'm going to use this visual of, we want to move the needle away from absolute power of kings, and we want to move it towards the power of the people. And the Enlightenment is going to be a major part of that. So here's my needle right there. See that? And I have a definition. It's a movement. It's a time period. But it's all about philosophical ideas. And these really brilliant people, man, I want to say one kid's name in particular to get that kid to pay attention, but I got to use this over and over for like the next 40 years, so I can't do that. You know who I'm talking about. Yeah, you finally looked up. There we go. So this is going to be from about 1650 to about 1800, basically like the American and French revolutions. So that's our time period. And the goal is to change politics and government using logic and reason, just like they did with science. Did you guys learn about alchemy last year in 7th grade? You know what they tried to turn into gold? Pee, yeah, urine, because it's the same color. They just figured, it's the same color. Maybe we just, evaporate it and like condense it and it'll be gold. No, that's terrible and disgusting. Some of you guys just got weird ideas. Oh God, you guys freak me out. But the whole point is science is going to get reformed and it's going to have a revolution because they're going to start using the scientific revolution. They're going to start using logic and reason. And they're going to do the same thing with religion. Hey, wait a minute. Selling indulgences? I have to buy a ticket for my granny to go to heaven? That's not in the Bible. They're going to start using logic and reason. They're going to check the sources. They're going to check the information. And that's what we want to do with politics. So the first thing that's going to go is that whole divine right of kings. They're going to say, wait a minute. You're trying to convince me that you get to make all the decisions because God specially blessed your family like 1,000 years ago? That's baloney. That doesn't pass the sniff test for anyone. I hope it doesn't. So the whole point is all these thinkers, all these brilliant guys are going to start having ideas about government and how it should run better. And what I mean by that is how can run better for the people. So the main idea is governments get their power from the people. They get their power from the consent of the people. And that means the approval of the people. Because I think we talked about this last year. I think my next picture is going to have like, oh, it doesn't. One of my pictures has a mob. Remember how we talked about how you guys could easily kill your history teacher if he was too cruel or unfair? Oh, you guys don't remember that? You already blocked that out. Okay. Well, remember, there's a lot of you, only one of me, so I better make sure I'm doing a good job. And that type of thought is going to be applied to government. And what we have here is the idea of a social contract. And once again, I'm showing you really bad pictures, straight from Google Images. If a kid is only going to type in social contract and hit enter, this is what you're going to get. I don't care about this picture right here. It's just like a picture of the pamphlet, the book. That doesn't help me understand it. This is like a way overly complicated diagram that has nothing to do with what we talk about, but kids think this looks good because their teacher will be impressed because it's a fancy diagram. I'm not impressed. This is what I'm impressed with, is these three pictures. When I link them together, it shows that the kid understands what's going on. So the social contract is an agreement between the government and the people. The people are going to let the government be in power. Because there's a million of those little people down at the bottom. And there's only one king or a parliament. So it's an unspoken, unwritten contract. No one actually signs on the line that says, we agree to this. But I want you to imagine that. There's a contract between the government and the people. And what has to happen is the government gets to exist. The people, the millions, are going to allow that government to exist if the government makes sure to be fair and have fair laws and respect the citizens. Here it comes, natural rights. There's life, liberty, and don't say pursuit of happiness, because that was Thomas Jefferson's plagiarism. Okay, not plagiarism, is like world famous by this point because it's been around for almost 100 years. It's kind of like the whole roses are red, violets are blue. What's the next thing I'm going to say? Everyone knows something. It's like John Locke's idea about natural rights and the social contract were world famous by then, or at least white guy, Western Europe famous. So the whole point is people are going to let governments exist if the government makes sure to protect the people's natural rights, life, liberty, and property. Ooh, for that reason, let me show you guys part of my favorite game. Ella, do you remember me talking about my favorite game? Oh, I just said a student's name. I'm going to have to delete that out. This game is called Scissor Copters, and I always do this on day 2. of school. Day one, I'm nice and friendly and welcoming. And then day two, I show my favorite game because I have to instill fear in my subjects and citizens. Get ready for this. What I do is I get a pair of scissors in each hand and I spin around like a helicopter all over the classroom. I call it scissor copters. Give me a thumbs up if you think that's a good idea that I play scissor copters in the classroom with 35, 13-year-olds sitting in desks at scissor level. You guys are nuts. Oh my gosh. No, this is a terrible idea. Thank you, one person. This is a terrible idea if an adult is wandering around spinning through a classroom with dangerous murder weapons playing scissor copters. No, that is not fair. That is not part of the social contract. As much as I love scissor copters, I have to restrain my freedom and liberty just a little bit. I can't play scissor copters inside the classroom. Out on the quad is a different issue. But I have to restrain my liberty, my freedom, my desire, my want, just like you guys. Do we have to wear shoes in school? As much as you wonderful people want to just walk around like hippy dippies, do we want kids to wear shoes? But it infringes on my freedom to let my toes breathe. Yeah, because we know there's that kid with like the hobbit toes that's got the toenail fungus, that got like the yellow crusty toenails, nasty business. And you know that kid is going to be right behind you and like put his foot up on your desk and is going to be right next to you or like on your backpack. No one wants that. So yes, wear your shoes. Wear your shoes. So yes, in order to be in a society, we all have to give up a little bit of our freedom. It's almost like wearing a mask. Do we have to give up a little bit of our freedom so that we all can live in a society? Yes, and that's the point. So a government's job, a government's role is not to exploit us and just get our tax money. It's to be there to help things run smoothly. So that's the big deal for Mr. Locke. Now there's some other all-stars that we're going to get to later in the year, but I want to move on here because what we've seen is we've got this big needle moving to empowering the people. We've seen Parliament getting bigger and spreading to more classes, more groups, and that's wonderful. However, here's the reality. This slide is going to show you this is the reality of what's going on in the colonies. These are some of the things they have to deal with. As much as we move that needle forward towards the people having power, King James coming to power, and he just wants to grab that and crush it and bring it back to himself. And that's not good. In fact, one of the things he does is he makes the Dominion of New England. That's going to be on page 55 in your whole textbook. And that's him saying, you know what, New England, you guys are a pain in my butt. And all of you 4 different colonies that have a charter, forget that. You guys are now one chunk of a colony. And instead of being 4 individual unique ones with all your own rights, all your own flavors, all your own culture and characteristics, you guys are now the Dominion of New England. And I have one guy, Sir Edmund Andros, reporting to me, and he's in charge of all the laws and enforcing and executing all the laws in all of New England. Deal with it, suckers. So that's obviously a negative thing for the colonists. The next thing that's going to happen in chronological order, at least according to our textbook, is the Zenger arrest, the Zenger trial, and overall the Zenger case. The outcome is going to be a very positive thing. It deals with free speech, especially about leaders. If you're a leader, you better expect to get made fun of. I know you guys have a giant like group text chat that makes fun of me and like my hair and my glasses or whatever else. And you guys wonder about what's going on off camera or something. I don't know. I expect that. I expect a little satire. But the English governor did not want that. We shall see how that one works out. I think you know how it works out because this is America and we know what type of freedoms we have. Now, there's one other one. It's the Navigation Acts. That's going to be on page 57 in your whole textbook, maybe a little bit on page 56, but mostly on page 57. And that's going to limit the economic opportunities of the colonists. That's going to say, when you navigate a ship, you must navigate it from your port to an English port. And you must check in with the English tax official. You must get a special stamp. You must show them your whole manifest of what cargo you have, and we're going to tax you on it. And since we are England and we are the mercantilist mother country, we're going to tell you where that's going to go and what colonies or what other groups you can trade with, and it'll be at the prices we set. Got it? No one's making any sort of reaction. You guys should be saying, no, that's not how business works. If the guy next door wants to buy it from me from like $10 a pound, I'm going to sell it to him instead of go through all these channels where you just want my tax money and you're going to make me sell it to you for $5 a pound. I want the $10 a pound with the French guy. Oh, wait a minute, the Dutch are going to pay me $12? So the Navigation Acts are all about restricting the colonists to make sure they fit in Mother England's mercantilist plan. So that's not going to be good for the colonists. So those are some of your topics right there. These 3 plus the Great Awakening. Too good, too bad for colonists. All right, so last thing. I don't know if I completely agree with this slide right here. It says rejection of authority. This is the impact of the Great Awakening. It's not going to be full rejection of authority, but it's going to plant that seed. And here's why. There should be, come on, computer. There we go. Here are pictures from the Great Awakening. Anyone notice an important guy in the middle? Is he wearing something pretty easily recognizable? Yeah, we should be able to recognize that that's either a judge or some sort of preacher guy. Well, he's not in a courtroom, so he's some sort of priest guy, and we know we're talking about the Great Awakening, and he's like doing religious stuff. We're in a public school, so we can't talk about it, right? So anyways, what you should see is a bunch of people. We've got rich guy over here, country bumpkin over here. Here's another big one. So this religious revival type of fever that was going across the colonies was all about big outdoor like camp meetings where people would come from all over the region. Imagine the San Diego Fair. It goes down in Del Mar, but where do people come from to go to that San Diego Fair? All over San Diego County. What about when the Major League Baseball All-Star Game was at Petco? Where did people come from to watch the All-Star Game? They came from all over America. It was like baseball fans from all over America. So what I want you guys to know is people from all over these regions are going to come meet at wherever this meeting is going down. So you're going to have a lot of people interacting and finding out about different ways of life and different ways that colonies are being governed, different issues and stuff like that. So that's going to be the social impact that colonies are going to start to unite. They're going to start to be more aware of each other. Next one, you can see how popular this one. This is a huge camp meeting, a huge revival camp meeting. And here, I even put in a claim for you guys about how this is going to make a political change. But what I want to really cut to the chase with you guys. And so here's the deal. This is the main idea. This is the bluff. So remember, bluff means bottom line up front. When it comes to the test or 30 years from now, when you think about the Great Awakening, I don't want you to think about the weird-looking preacher, white guy with the wig saying like, yeah, you're going to go to blah if you don't, blah, 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 and like how strict they were. What I want you to remember is the main idea that comes out of it is if all people are equal in the eyes of God. Notice these are equal signs. They're not just fancy doodads. If all people are equal in the eyes of God, remember I was doing this thing last class. Over here, this is the religious side of life. If all people, all these people, young, old, ugly, handsome, rich, poor, middle class, if they're all equal in the eyes of God, then the highest authority over here is the king. Well, all these citizens of England should also be equal in the eyes of the king. So over here, I have a picture of a fancy aristocratic English guy. Well, he should have the same rights. This is the Enlightenment idea of equality, reason, logic, but also life, liberty, and property. It should equally apply because it's a natural right to everyone. Look at these middle class, working class craftsmen in the American colonies. They should have the same rights as Mr. Fancy Pants over here. If all people are equal in the eyes of God, then all people should be equal in the eyes of the king. That's the main bottom line upfront message. Why should we care about that? Well, it's the same question I asked you earlier. Would you want a king that's 3,000 miles away or a parliament that's 3,000 miles away? Well, what you really want is you want to elect a representative from your colony. And the other 12 colonies want to have a representative represent them. And we want to have a voice in parliament where those laws are being made. So we want to send our representatives to parliament, and we want to let those darn English people know, those hoity-toity, fancy pants that think we're their redneck country bumpkin cousins out in the American frontier that think we're a bunch of yokels. We want them to know what impact their laws are having. So we want to elect a representative and have them know exactly what the Navigation Acts mean to us. We want them to know what the governors mean to us and what Andros did with the Dominion of New England. Right there. And definitely about that Zenger case. So I'm going to stop presenting now because we're going to start talking about the propaganda piece. I think I just do this.